One day I thought, hey, Boot, your life was saved 4 times during World War II by a little voice. If you hadn't listened, you wouldn't be here. So there has to be this extrasensory world out there.
Aspen Roots.
All right, welcome to this week's episode. We're here in Silverthorne, Colorado with our good buddy Boot Gordon. Boot here lives on a river in a magical house. It's called the Foam Dome that he built in the 70s. And I used to live here back in 2012, and Sophia and I actually met in his backyard at a sweat lodge. And so Boot is just this amazing person that has stories for days. So we're hoping to capture a few of them on our podcast here. And Boot, how old are you?
I'm 19. Yeah, well, and then you add a little bit for age. I'm pushing 101.
101. So
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I asked you once what your secret was to living so healthily at such an old age, and you said staying busy. That's what you told me. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So I told some people we're going to interview you, and they wanted to know your secret. So do you have anything else to add to that?
Well, last week someone asked me, now that I was 100, what advice I had to answer, and I said, smile.
There you go.
And then on Sunday, I sat at the front row of the church and to hear better. And after the service, the minister of the Dillon Community Church stood beside me and told the congregation that I was 100 on Thursday. And as I turned to face the congregation, I noticed they're all standing, and everybody in front of me was smiling. And I looked to the right, and everybody was smiling. I looked to the left, everybody was smiling. And I said, I have never before had such an honor. And they put it in the paper.
Cool.
That's so cool. Nice.
Yeah. So that's great advice. And you don't need glasses to see a newspaper?
No, I probably could see a little bit better, but I don't need it yet.
Cool. Nice.
That's awesome.
But I do need a hearing aid. And I do need a new hairdresser.
So do you still meditate these days?
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And what do you do to meditate?
Well, first of all, I do some dynamic tension exercises. I have a friend that was a really successful trainer, and he taught me this thing. So I go through these dynamic tension exercises of pushing my knee and pushing, get all my muscles from my feet up to my hands and to my neck. Anyway, and then after that, then I sit quietly, and I don't do any hatha yoga. I don't do that. I'm too old. Anyway, so I just sit quietly, and our conscious mind is centered right behind our eyes. And so I move it from there down to my heart. And then when it gets down to my heart, I send it into the tiny space within the sacred side of my heart.
And that's something Drenvelo teaches about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And that's in his books too.
Yeah, and so that doesn't take long. And then once it's there, then I connect with the third eye, and then connect that with your chi center, your center, and then those three, and then you keep adding all the other chakras, the throat chakra, the crown chakra, and the root chakra, and the sex chakra. And so you get the 8 chakras going. And then Drenvelo taught us how to activate our own light force. And once you get that going, you throw that into this energy. So then you have that energy, and then I have a little prayer I give. And maybe 15 minutes is sitting quietly and listening. And so if I have some questions, I could answer questions.
What's your prayer?
Prayer is, Almighty God, creator of all that is, your white light, power of love surrounds me and protects me, and it clears me, and it heals me, and it permeates every cell of my body, And I give thanks for this perfect day. Let my light so shine that I only glorify thee. Miracles will fall, miracles and wonders shall never cease.
Beautiful.
That's
a
it.
beautiful.
Beautiful.
That doesn't take
prayer.
long.
And how often do you meditate?
I do that every day.
Every day.
Yeah, in the morning, almost every day.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you meditate and stay busy. Do you have a special diet or anything like that, or is
Bananas.
bananas?
Bananas.
Bananas
Yeah?
and tea.
Okay.
What kind of tea?
Lipton's.
All right.
And I say Lipton's because my grandfather family was raised in Glasgow, Scotland. And my grandfather lived out in this little house. And so he'd take the train into town. And so on this train, there was a grocery clerk. His family had a grocery store in Glasgow. And he would go in, and apparently they liked each other. And guess what his name was?
Lipton.
Lipton.
Nice.
He became Sir Lipton.
Nice.
But he
Very
was just a grocery clerk in those days.
Nice. Nice.
So I helped the economy, of Scotland, but I buy their tea.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
That's cool.
It's fun to see you again and be here with you. And I'm really interested in what you're doing because I think a lot of people don't realize that there's this spiritual world out there, this extrasensory world. The people don't even know it's there, but it's much bigger than our temporal world and maybe more important. So that's the frontier, I think, of mankind is into this experiential world. We could, for instance, Drunvalo Melchizedek used to say, there are two worlds out there. There's the world of God's world, and then there's Lucifer's world. And both of them found a way out of the void, see. And the only trouble is you can't tell them apart. Lucifer's world from God's, except that God's world is love, has love. And there's none in Lucifer's world. And it seems to me the kids of today are getting to be more and more interested in the Lucifer's world than the real world, the out of doors, the real natural thing. And so that's what I'm interested in.
And how did you become interested in that?
Well, when I was about 14, I had this daymare. Instead of a nightmare, I had a daymare. It was really scary. And I could see all these people. They were all upset. And they're running there for their lives. And it was terror. It was awful. And the same dream would repeat day after day, not all day long, but just for a few minutes. But it didn't work maybe for a few weeks. And I didn't know what was going on, but looking back, it looks like maybe it was the fall of Atlantis, and where the people are going to be in this tidal wave, or maybe wiping their civilization out, and that's what I saw, maybe. But I didn't think about that until my wife and I belonged to this church after World War II, and it was a Unitarian church. And it was all college professors that were there who were in the congregation. And the minister was brilliant. And my wife and I would take notes, just like college, because his sermons were so interesting. But there was nothing spiritual there. And they said, we cannot fathom the infinite. And therefore, why worry about it? So let's try to lead a life like Jesus led. Of very high consciousness, of thoughtfulness, and if we do that, and if there is a hereafter, good. See, then you'll benefit from it. But we don't know that it's true, so we're not atheists. We're agnostics. So one day I thought, hey, Boot, your life was saved 4 times during World War II by a little voice. If you hadn't listened, you wouldn't be here. So there has to be this extrasensory world out there.
So your life was saved by a voice in World War II. Can you tell us about that?
Well, the first one was when I was flying in training, and we were flying a PT-19 in primary training. I'd already soloed, and my instructor told me to take a plane up on myself and practice spins, and he showed me how to spin. What you do is you pull the stick back. Most of them have sticks, and you pull the stick back until the airplane is stalls. It quits flying, and then you push in one of the rudders, and then you go into this flat spin. And then the way you come out of it is you kick the opposite rudder, and you wait one turn, and then you pop the stick, and the airplane comes out of the spin. See, so he said, practice that. So okay, so we landed, and he jumped out, and I climbed up to 5,280 feet, which is about a mile high above Missouri where it was, and I put it into spin, and I waited one turn, and I kicked the opposite rudder end, and I waited one turn and popped the stick, and it kept spinning.
Wow.
Oh boy.
Well, maybe I didn't push in the rudder. I had put it in too slowly or something. I did. So the next time I really forcefully and then waited one turn, and I popped the stick, and it kept spinning. Mm-hmm. And I'm getting lower, closer to the ground. And so then the third time I thought, well, I didn't pop the stick right. So next time I pushed, really kicked the rudder in, waited one turn, I popped the stick, and I'm upside down flying, spinning, see.
Oh, no.
And I'm getting out of this airplane. So I got out of the airplane and waited till it spun by me because I didn't want to pull a parachute. It would be stuck in the airplane. See.
Yeah.
So the airplane spun by me, and I pulled the parachute, and the parachute didn't work.
Uh-oh.
And I'm getting closer. Now I'm going faster, and 32 feet per second, you go faster and faster till you reach 130 miles an hour, see, which is about 2 miles a minute. 60 miles an hour is 1 mile a minute, right?
Yes.
So 130 is about 2 miles a minute. So I'm going at that speed, and I'm going to hit the ground pretty soon, see. And the little voice says, pull it again. And I argued, see, here's God as my co-pilot, see, like guardian angel trying to save my life. And I argued, see, not very smart. See. And I said, it's not going to do any good. See, this D-ring is out here. Pull it again, boom, boom, it opened.
Wow.
500 feet above the ground, the parachute opened. 500 feet is 1/10 of a mile, see.
1/10 of a mile. That's
Well, yeah,
pretty close to the ground.
one because it's 5,000 feet in so it's 1/10. So 30 seconds, if it goes 1 mile in 30 seconds, so it's 1/10 of 30 seconds is 3 seconds.
Yeah, 3 seconds.
1,001, 1,002, 1,000, blah, I'm dead. That's how close I came. When the parachute opened, I'm going 110 miles an hour, and the parachute stops you, and my boots fell off. And the farmer found the boots and took it to the air base, and the kids call me Boots because I landed barefooted. So anyway, that's basically how I got my name.
Cool.
So that was the first time. And, of course, if you make a mistake, they have to try and figure out if it was your fault or the engine's fault or, the airplane's fault or whatever. So they had these check rides. So I went up with my instructor for an hour, 2 hours, nothing of it spins. And everyone I brought out bright on the nose, perfect. But if I flunked just one of those, I would be an enlisted man, see, and then a gunner and a bomber, see, and instead of being an officer and a pilot,
Okay.
so it was really stressful. So the next day, I had the one of the top instructors. I flew with him, and for 2 hours, nothing but spins from different types of spin. Hammerhead spins, where you go up like this, and then because the engine it's called a hammer, it swings down and goes into a spin, or you put your airplane in a steep bank, and then you kick the rudder, and it goes into a snap roll, and it goes into a spin. All these different types of spins, and I brought them. And so the second time was this, and then the third time, the head of the whole school. I went up with him for an hour and a half or so, nothing but spins. I'm maybe the best spinner in the world. No one
So
has
it's the
ever
plane's fault.
spun that many times. So I had these were all civilian instructors, see, And primary was it was farmed out to civilians to be trained. But anyway, the first lieutenant flew with me, and we went up there, and I could tell he was scared, see, because, oftentimes they didn't come out of the spin, see.
Yeah.
And so it used to be required to get your flying license, you had to know how to spin and recover. But now they don't require it anymore. Anyway, so I went up there, and I could tell that he was scared, see. I'm kind of confident by this time, see, 3 days of nothing but spins. And so we put it in a spin, and I brought it right out, and he said, let's go home. He just did once, see. And so I continued on. They didn't wash me out because obviously, I knew what I was doing, see. It just didn't work. Anyway, so that's the first time. Then the second time came, a mission overseas. We were flying P-38s, and we went from the place called Zamboanga, which is on the bottom of the island of Mindanao in the Philippine Islands. Anyway, so our mission was Borneo, and it was a long mission, 7-hour missions. It was, and you really were tired because you didn't have cushions. You sat on cans of water, see, in your survival kit. See, so they usually had to lift you out of the airplane. Anyway. So we bombed, I think it was probably Sarawak. There, at the island of Borneo, there were 3 oil fields. Of course, there were no oil fields in Japan, see. So the first thing the Japanese did was to invade those ports on Borneo the British had these oil wells. And one was Balikpapan in the eastern area of Borneo. And then the northeastern was Sarawak, and then Brunei Bay was on the northwestern end. Anyway, I think it was Sarawak. So we were coming back from there. It'll make a long story short. We've got my flight leader. See, I was his wingman, and the element leader, I was number 4 man. We became separated. I won't go into that. But anyway, so then we noticed them way down there, and we were at 30,000 feet. They're there on the deck, and they went through this hole in the cloud. And so we knew it was safe, and then there wasn't really raining underneath the cloud. So this guy, split S's, he turned the airplane upside down, and he'd go straight down. So I was on his wing, but I immediately pulled the throttle back and hit the dive flaps. And so I started losing my position on his wing, see. So I pulled up the dive flaps and gave it a throttle and got on his wing, and we were going straight down, and we hit the speed of sound. So I hit 660 miles an hour going straight down.
Oh, wow.
Well, when you do that, there's no control. And when you hit the speed of sound, there's no control. The stick is might as well be this microphone. See? It's just no control. So here I'm going, I'm getting the hell out of this place. So I reached up to pull the canopy, and then I was going to loosen my seatbelt and stand up. But if I'd done that at that speed, I would have hit the horizontal tail, see. On this P-38, I would have been dead in 30 seconds, see. Shark bait.
Ooh,
anyway,
yeah.
So a little voice says, trim it. And then all airplanes have trim. They have one for the nose and one for the rudder, see. And then you can trim those in so the airplane is hands off. Anyway, so I said, and again I argued, see. It's not going to do any good. I don't have any control. Trim it. So I rolled the wheel back, and I could feel the nose come up just a little bit. Just a little tiny bit, see. So I stuck with it. And by that time, I'd pull the throttle back and the dive flaps. And the dive flap, of course, really saved me. But anyway, so we came right on the deck doing 660 miles an hour.
Wow.
And not many people survived the hitting, because usually the airplane fell apart by that time, see.
Wow.
So I was pretty lucky. So then I had 2 other times during World War II, and twice during the Korean War, and twice since then.
Really?
In civilian life. Once was in a kayak right out here, and I could always roll 2 temps. I could always roll. See, so I would. So I'm out on the river, and I've never been in a river before. I've always been in swimming pools. See, and I overturned. See, And so I tried to try to swing around, and I couldn't do it. I kept trying. What happened was that the kayak had floated next to the bank, a river, and these branches of these bushes it kept the kayak from rolling. See, and so I would have died. See, the little voice says, "Grab some air, get air." Okay, so I quit trying to roll and just tried to tip it up so I could get some air. And on the third attempt, I got air. And then I busted out of that kayak. And I haven't been in a kayak since.
I don't blame you.
So anyway, I do know there's an accessory world out there.
So that got you into spirituality. Did you study at the Maharishi University?
Yeah. And then I started reading about Patanjali. There was a guy named Ernest Wood who was a professor of spirituality at the College of the Pacific in San Jose, California. And I read his stories, and he had this one book about, I think there was 7, I think it was called The 6 Limbs of Yoga, the 6 different types of yoga, and one was this Raja Yoga, the princely yoga of Patanjali, and it was around 300 BC. And basically he just said, you just sit. You don't have to do any exercises or, you just sit quietly and you blank your mind. Well, of course, as a fighter pilot, you couldn't think about your girlfriend. You couldn't think about lunch. You couldn't think. All you did is thought about flying, see. So I could concentrate. And so it was pretty easy for me to blank my mind. And a lot of people can't do that. And so what we do is we give them mantras, see, so that they can repeat to themselves, and that will get rid of the monkey chatter.
Oh, okay.
See?
Interesting.
Yeah.
So when did the Sage Center here come into play?
Oh, so my second wife, we took the TM training together, Transcendental Meditation training, but then we were divorced, and then I took the advanced training called the Flying Sutras to learn how to, and Maharishi says the first airplane didn't go very far, 20 feet or something like that. And then later on, it got better, and so he taught us how to hop around in meditation, and we call it the Flying Sutra. And by the way, the Maharishi has a university in Fairfield, Iowa. And so they have built these domes you could sit there. And it's really, you can just feel the energy in that, when 1,000 people there. And the Maharishi's idea was to have, if he could get in one country enough people, you don't need 10% or 51% of the people in the world to become enlightened to reach the 100th monkey, the vision point.
Like critical mass. So what you're saying is if enough people wake up to the magical world around us, that everybody else will at the same time.
Yeah, it's just a critical mass. Yeah. That's what I was looking for, the word. And Maharishi said you just need a small percentage. And so he wanted to get the Philippine Islands, and he got Marco interested, and Marco joined his TM, and then Marco was going to say anybody who works for the Filipino government has to go through this TM training, see. And then if that had happened, most of the people in the Philippines would have been meditators, and then we might have had this fusion point, see, this critical mass. So that was, so then we had people here, I think we had maybe 6 people renting from me. They were all sadhas. They'd all gone through the flying training. So we'd all been, every day, twice a day, we would meditate here.
Oh, cool.
Using that was pretty powerful and fun.
Nice.
Yeah. And then I had this one spiritual experience in my bedroom. And what happened was that I was just reading at night, and it was about 8:30, and I hadn't been drinking, anyway, and I had complained for 2 nights in a row. Why doesn't somebody help me with this town? I'm trying to build this town tomorrow and show people how to live, blah, 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 blah. And no one listens, and I can't, so I'm bitching out loud, see. 2 nights. And the third night, I'm sitting there, and something appears in my room, see, between the bed and the ceiling, and about 4 feet tall, and it was in 2 dimensions. It was like a ribbon, a red ribbon that was wound around, and it didn't cross each other, but it is curved. It's curved like this, like a tree. It looked like a triangular tree, but it was all this red ribbon, and then surrounding the ribbon was this yellow aura. It's beautiful, huh?
Yeah.
Except I got sick looking at it. I got sick to my stomach. I had the flu, like I wanted to throw up. And so I could feel it and I could see it, see. But I knew I didn't want this thing in my room, see. Get out of here. And it didn't go right away. Then it disappeared.
Oh, wow.
So I called this guy in the TN. I told him, he said, oh, that's nothing. You just imagined that. Bullshit. So I left because they didn't believe me. I quit meditating. Anyway.
Wow.
Okay. What do you think it was?
The dark forest.
You do.
Oh, no question about it.
Let me bring some context in for the listeners here that Boot wants to design a town to solve some of the problems that we have in society. Is that right?
Yeah, right, huh?
Yeah, so he's written several books. I've read them. He draws, and his house is a good example of the type of architecture that he wants to build in the town. And architecture and art is a big part of it. And, I'll put some links in the description below so you guys can tour his house.
Yeah, the definition of art, I used to teach art, and I was always kind of confused. You'd have this really great artist, Norman Rockwell, marvelous pictures, and the artist didn't think he was much of an artist. Well, he was a great artist, and so why didn't they recognize him as an artist? And so then I started thinking about art, and it seemed to me that a lot of it's ugly and not very smart and not very beautiful. And so I thought we should have a new definition, maybe not new, but a definition of beauty, that beauty is godliness, see? And therefore we have thoughts that are godly, and we use words that are godly, and we create works that are that lift mankind, not divide them and have them fighting and dividing. And so that's what this little school I wanted to start out here. I call it Bauhaus II School of Design because Bauhaus I was started by a man by the name of Walter Gropius, and he was an architect. He never graduated from college, but you don't have to be a licensed architect. You could study for a couple years, 2 years, 3 years as a draftsman, and then you can take the exam, see. Anyway, so Walter Gropius was in World War I in Germany, of course, and he just barely survived the war. And he got 2 medals, and they didn't give medals in those days. So anyway, and then after the war, he wanted to start this little school, what they call it minimalism. So everything is really plain and no ornamentation and no just stark. And of course, all the cities of the world have been built on this idea of the Bauhaus I, and it's all glass and cement, but there's no soul, see. And I thought the reason is it has to be curved, see. And so, women are curved. I wouldn't sit next to you if you're just boxy. So anyway, Walter Gropius left, kicked out of Germany by Hitler because he didn't want to. He liked ornamentation. Anyway, so he moved to England, then to the United States, and he became head of the Harvard Design School. And so I wrote him, and I said, you got it all wrong. Here I am, just a little school teacher, a ski instructor, carpenter, telling Walter Gropius, I got it all wrong. And he answered back, and he said, your reasoning is sound. And I hope you will be strong enough to see it come to fruition. Isn't
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
And to a degree you have. So you left Aspen and you came here and built the SAGE Center. So what does SAGE stand for?
SAGE stands for Spiritual Awareness Gateway to Enlightenment, SAGE, SAGE. And we had a meditation group here, and everybody liked to come here. And then my wife invited this guy over. He was very handsome and very smart, and he was telling us about Buddhism, and he took half the group.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so he started a Buddhist group here. And then the other half, we had members from Canada. They were framers. They would build these buildings out of wood, framing. And they were really good and nice people, but they'd only stay one place for maybe 1 or 2 years, then they'd have to move. So they moved out, and so the meditation group just kind of folded because there's no one left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I lived here, it was usually a lot of different ski bums that were just moving through, and you would teach them about meditation, and you were always teaching them about spirituality and bringing them to meditation groups here in this room, and also letting them work for their rent. And it's been a really cool place to host and spread the word.
Yes,
So,
Boot welcomes everyone. You welcome everyone into your home. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but see, the town of the future, I'm not letting anybody enter, see, because people of low consciousness, they are the people who cause trouble, see, and they're the ones that cause hatred and distress, because if you're high consciousness, you want to help people, and you have love, and see, and Lucifer doesn't have any love.
who created the light quotient scale that you use?
Oh, his name was David Hawkins.
Okay. So David Hawkins created this scale that measures people's consciousness, and Boot uses a pendulum and asks the pendulum what people's consciousness is.
He didn't use a pendulum. He used kinesiology, but he used the arm out there, see.
Okay, muscle
And
testing.
he'd have somebody, and he'd push the arm down, and if it was strong, it was true. The arm would stay true. But you can also use this just by standing up, and if you lean forward, you say something, and feeling forward, that's true. If you're sitting back, it's negative.
Okay.
And then you can use your fingers, one linking your fingers together like this, see, and you can and you ask a question, and so if it's very tight, then it's true. But if it pulls apart, it's false. But I like to use a pendulum because it's just a lot easier, and of course you don't have to have another person. You can do it yourself. So that I think it's pretty accurate. And Hawkins was, by the way, he was a psychiatrist, and he was maybe one of the best in the country. He had something like 21 assistants. These are not secretaries; these are assistants in New York. People came from all the world to be healed by him. And then he was going to die. Here he is. He's a psychiatrist, so he's a medical doctor. So he knows he's going to die, and his friends know he's going to die. And he was an agnostic. He didn't believe that anything spiritual, see. And so just as the last word, he says this, he tells what happened. He said, just before he went unconscious, he said, if there is a God, please heal me. And he fell unconscious, and he woke up the next morning completely healed.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So he thought there must be something to it, see. So he sold his business, and he sold his apartment in Manhattan, and he sold his house, his estate in Long Island, and moved to Sedona, Arizona.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so he used to have lectures, and I'd go over there and listen to him, and he wrote a bunch of books, and now he's died. He's dead now, but it was interesting. And then I bumped into Drunvalo Melchizedek, and I started listening to him, heard his lectures, and took the the courses that he had, and one lecture he had in the middle of the night you'd walk across these coals, these burning coals, barefooted. See,
You did that?
yeah,
Wow.
I did that. Yeah, and you cool boss, and you walk, you walk. It's about 12 feet. It's not just a couple of feet, and it's at night. It's glowing. Oh God, it's scary, and. Anyway, I got through, and there was this beautiful girl, see, blonde. Gee, she was beautiful. And I grabbed her, and she said, "Oh!" And we both were screaming and yelling, and we didn't see it. It's really amazing. And I'm going to build my town. She said, "Your name is Boot." I said, "What? Isn't your name Boot?" "How do you know mine?" She said, I have 3 roommates, and they all know you, and they think they told me about you.
Wow.
Funny?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so, quickenings. And so, by the way, Hawkins and his team got this chart, or map, he calls it, and the top is where Jesus and Buddha are up there, 1,000, see. Mm-hmm. And then down here, an amoeba is a 0, see. So at 200 on the scale of 1,000, below 200 that's where the darkness is. And 200 above that is the light starts showing up. So the demarcation between darkness and light is at 200. Mm-hmm. At 400 is where the ego is, according to Hawkins. And that's where these people are really like Einstein and so forth. They were really smart. They were in the 400 area. And so most of them didn't get above 499, see? Mm-hmm. And then at 500 starts more or less enlightened. At 600, that's where you become enlightened. And the 700 are the teachers and so forth. Anyway.
So I remember when I lived here, you used to check the LQ of your renters, and if they were below 200, you'd ask them to leave.
Yeah. Oh, and the town I want to believe, see? Mm-hmm. Therefore, 500 is D. D in Latin is 500, see? So that's why I thought maybe we should LQD and deer. LQD. So I wanted to start an organization called the LQDers. So light quotient with above 500, and we'd get these people together, see, and just together get to have fun, to be people that are enlightened.
So to get up to 500 and bypass the ego, that takes a lot of work, right? A lot of spiritual work.
It's very easy. It's just easy. It's not like IQ, see. LQ is pretty easy. Hawkins says one of the biggest detriments to enlightenment is the ego. Mm-hmm. You have to be godly. You have to just think like Jesus. Care about others and forgive people and accept them where people are. But you accept them, but you don't make excuses for them. You want to help them wake up. And so that's what I think our job is, and that's why I want to build this town, so people can see it, can actually live it and visit it and see it, because most of us are from Missouri, see. We have to show me, and this is why I want to build this town. It'd be so neat. People, I want to live in a town like that. Well, then raise your LQ, for God. You do it in one day. All you have to do is read a couple of books, Power versus Force or whatever, or just sit and meditate and think about how dumb things you've done in your life, how beautiful the world is. It's just, and that's what we have to do. And it's not difficult, you see. So, I'm really optimistic about the future because I believe that we have help. Do you want me to hear a little about that?
Yeah, please.
Yes.
Okay, this is really interesting because the idea that we have help is that the Russian scientists, the Russian physicists, discovered maybe about 40 years ago that there's a cloud, they call it a cloud or an atmosphere, that our galaxy has entered, that our solar system has entered, and of course Earth has entered, this cloud. And they called it left-hand torsion. and they have also discovered right-hand torsion. But in this left-hand torsion, there are three particulars. One is that magnetism is weakening, and we do know that's been weakening on Earth here. And so the North Magnetic Pole, is not sitting out there near the North Pole anymore. It's going right towards England. See, and the second thing is, in this left-hand torsion, there is a greater sense of gravity. Gravity is heavier than usual. And then the third point is really interesting, is that there is higher vibrations, and the higher vibrations of love. So without anything, it's just every day the world is getting more loving, more thoughtful, more cooperative, and it's just going to happen. But it doesn't have to go up with a long, it can go up in flares, just like the solar flare. And that's what we might have, is one of these huge jumps. And so in one day, we could hit point of the 100th monkey point.
I hope so.
I hope so
Yeah.
too.
But what's interesting is these are Russian scientists trained in a country that didn't believe in God, see, and then they've come up with this idea. And by the way, our scientists now agree with these scientists. So it's going to happen, and the shift is going to take place. Consciousness of the world will rise, and we'll all have this new era, which will need new houses and new villages.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And so we can be busy.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
Anyway, so they want to bring that up. And then the other thing is that my guides say that if you're a low consciousness, you will not reincarnate on Earth. And you go to a planet that's in a far-off galaxy, that's in the Stone Age. And you don't want it, because it'll take you millions of years to be able to get to a point where, again, you have an opportunity to become enlightened, see. So do whatever you can to get above, 500 or 400. But anyway, I just wanted to mention those couple things.
So what do you say to people when they thank you for your service in the war?
Well, I look at them and I thank them, but they have no idea. They have no idea what war is like, and how much miserable it is and awful it is, and so. But what war does, and this it did to me and everybody I know, when you're in combat, people shooting at you, you become extremely sensitive. You become extremely aware. You know when the bullet's going to come, you duck it, the bullet misses you. You know, you have a sixth sense. You're spiritual.
Yeah.
See, that's why they say that there's no agnostics in a foxhole, see, because they're shooting at you. And so I don't explain this to them. And of course, most of them don't know that I was in combat.
You used to tell people the wars are contrived and to stop having them.
Yeah, I still think that. Yeah. People say, well, look at World War II. That's true. Hitler was dangerous, and we had to go to war to make sure that help England and help Russia to defeat. But you know what? Guess who financed Hitler? Our bankers. Guess who financed Lenin and Stalin? Our bankers. Guess who financed China today? Our bankers, our investors. This dumb.
So before we end, do you have any jokes that you want to tell?
Life is a joke.
As part of our podcast, at the end, we do something called a soulful send-off. Do you have anything from your heart that you want to give as a message?
Smile.
Okay.
Smile.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it's very difficult to be pessimistic with a smile on your face, right? It's very difficult to be sick when you're smiling.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to be depressed when you're smiling. So, yeah.
Well, that's a soulful send-off if I ever heard
Yeah,
one.
exactly.
Thank you.
Simple but yet effective.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, well, thank you
Thank
for
you so
coming.
much.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, both of them. Thank you.
Every week, we share our most recent divine guidance in an audio recording called Oracle Offerings. Sign up for only $5 a month at patreon.com/aspenroots.